I think it's very safe to say, based on what has been going on the past 2.5 weeks or so, is that Hollywood, the overall film industry, when you look at the Hollywood sign over that hill, it is no longer Hollywood, it is now Hollowood, because there is nothing going on right now. A lot of studios are beginning to collapse, a lot of actors and actresses are going through either a firing phase or are getting removed and axed from specific projects. There's been a lot of things going on right now between television, the film industry, streaming, and everything else within the Hollywood bubble. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. So, Robert De Niro, alright, we've been talking about him on and off because there's been a lot of things going on between himself and Warner Brothers, and the latest has a lot more to do with the craziness that's been going on between Robert De Niro and the studio executives over at WB, and it's only getting worse, and it's not all that surprising. Now, we already know that Robert De Niro is an unhinged individual. He doesn't really have any boundaries when it comes to what he says, either in the public eye or behind the scenes or what he plans to say. There's just that. That's how Robert De Niro is in 2024 and has been, quite frankly, for the past 10 or so years. But focusing now on what's been really going on between himself and WB and why it's getting worse, well, it's really not looking good at all for Robert De Niro as an actor and specifically as a person right now, because a lot of studios are beginning to turn their back on Robert De Niro after what has been going on with WB. Let's get into it, shall we? Now, specifically, we already know that Robert De Niro is desperately looking for work at this point. He is desperately trying to get these mega movies out there, and they're just not working at all anymore. Now, with the film industry and the majority of its studios now going through so much damage after receiving pushback from the general public, one monumental development now involves more to do with Robert De Niro after he got fired from Warner Brothers for two massive roles to return as a mob boss that were going to pay him tens of millions of dollars, 40 mil to be exact, combined, that are now in jeopardy after he was let go from the projects. A crucial update to the situation now involves how De Niro, as it turns out, is already moving forward with a legal case toward Warner Brothers and its studio executives, along with its CEO David Zaslav, for causing De Niro to lose out on a $40 million deal. The update that has been erupting behind the scenes now involves how De Niro is pushing yet another blame game move on the studio executives, that they played politics with their decision for his role in the two massive mob boss movies that he was fired from. Already, De Niro is blaming the studio executives, get this, for agreeing with over half the country that holds a different political belief, and blaming Warner Brothers for catering to that side of the general public that go against De Niro's politics. The ugly side of this development now is that De Niro is reportedly going to 100% put this into his legal case, that he claims Warner Brothers fired him due to politics and his beliefs in his politics, when in reality it had to do with the terrible things that he said about a large portion of the country and how he said it on both live television and pre-taped material weeks ago regarding his political views. Now, De Niro is now preparing to also go on several podcasts and radio shows, such as The Howard Stern Show, as early as this December, to tell his side of the story of what happened at Warner Brothers, and is planning to also make a very detailed, upfront statement about Warner Brothers and how he believes they fired him for his political views. It turns out David Zaslav saw the terrible things De Niro said about a large portion of this country, and this was reportedly the deal breaker for the Warner Brothers studio heads to finally let go of De Niro. Now, prior to this, De Niro was demanding a payout to jump from $40 million to $60 million for the two films combined, along with residual payments based on other factors. And this was something that created an intense shakeup at the WB headquarters. To make matters worse for De Niro, his recent warning that he claims to WB that they fired him over political views was presented to De Niro already by the executives as false and taken out of context. De Niro is refusing the facts that it's, of course, what he said specifically. Even many of the cast members that are part of this film have gone their separate ways from De Niro and have been specifically instructed by their agents and managers to no longer communicate with Robert after his recent outburst behind the scenes at WB in the wake of all this drama. Now, guys, before I move on, let me just say one thing about Robert De Niro, alright? Look, this guy never gets the memo, he never gets the clue or the hint, whatever have you. He will never fully understand that what he said and how he said it about half the entire country, if not more than half the entire country, really rubbed people the wrong way, and in a very valid way, alright? The way he said it, the things that he said were uncalled for, totally unprofessional, especially when you're an actor and you are representing many different studios. You don't go up on stage and say such ridiculous things and ridiculous claims. So, I think that David Zaslav, as much as I am a critic of the guy, the CEO of WB, made the right move. It's not necessarily going to save them for 2025 and the rest of the 2020s unless they really get back on track with their overall roster of films. They really have to streamline their series of movies and whatever it may be, alright? So as long as they have that on track, they can do very, very well. Disney, however, is in a far worse situation, so there is that WB can compare themselves to, but WB does have some work to do. So that was the one plus coming out of David Zaslav and the studio executives over there, the board of directors. I think it was a very good move on their end. The only thing right now is that after they ditched Robert De Niro, they're finding it to be very difficult to get a recast, and this is putting those two movies on the line. This is putting those two movies in jeopardy, and they may very well face a cancellation. In fact, the first film, which is a more lengthy film that they want to drop in 2026 or 27, is already facing a lot of cutbacks, and we'll talk more about that budget later on in the week. But this is where it picks up a little bit more. Now, with De Niro's story now that he was fired due to his belief with politics and how he plans to put this in his legal case, it's already been described as weak from a legal standpoint from those that he actually talked to. Now, what's interesting about that is, yes, it is a very weak point. It had nothing to do specifically in isolation with his politics or his political beliefs. Like I say, WB instructed this to Robert De Niro. They specifically presented this to him behind the scenes, that it wasn't about his view, it was how he presented his views and the way he said his views and how he really just targeted a specific, group of the general public. And we all know exactly, what he said out there. It's going to be forever embedded in the internet. It will never go away. It's going to stick with him for the rest of his life. And that's just a fact, right? You can't really get rid of that. And that's why you always have to remember, when you say things on live television or on the internet, it lives on forever because you have a lot of repeat material, you have a lot of copies, you have people uploading, re-uploading, whatever it may be. It's going to survive anything. So again, I think it's very interesting that WB made this ultimate call and how Robert De Niro is getting so desperate that he really has to make it like he was let go, he was removed, he was fired from these two projects by WB because he believed in his politics. No. That really is a very poor, perception coming from Robert De Niro, and it makes absolutely no sense at all. It comes out of sheer desperation. But overall, I would like to hear what everyone has to say about this recent update regarding WB, Robert De Niro, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.